Hey, everybody. I'm David Bloom, co-founder of Next TMT Talks, this here podcast with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel, and a special guest, Paul Pastor of Quickplay, who will be talking with us about a lot of fun stuff. We'll be diving into the weekend movie debuts from two very different humans whose first name begins with M, the Super Bowl Olympics, which are kicking off in just a few days. Mixed earnings from cable, broadband giants Charter and Comcast, Sundance's last run in Park City, TikTok superstar Kabi Lame's big payday, and the many goings on around LA and Grammy Week that suggest a possible future for entertainment. It's possible we'll get into a little bit of marketing, branding, and other things because it turns out the bomb cyclone of the Super Bowl Olympics is about to hit. And Paul knows a bit about that. He has uh, a large portfolio of brand marketing and other duties with Quickplay after stints as an executive at Disney and Discovery Communications. Given that the week ahead is what it is, he's the man to talk to. So thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. Tell us real quickly what Quickplay is and what you do.
Thank you both for having me. So just to give a quick background on QuickPlay, we are a company that provides basically the end-to-end cloud transformation for OTT, right? So everything from your content ingest, your content management system, how you think about merchandising and showcasing your content, and then the front-end devices. That's been our bread and butter, is helping companies build out those transformation platforms. We've obviously now heavily invested in AI and thinking about AI throughout the entire value chain as we think about both ingest and how to create more metadata and how to actually make it more discoverable. And as we'll discuss here, I'm assuming today, we've also come to market with a product we call AI Studio, which helps creators, distributors, streamers essentially find ways to address the creator economy through short form content. So a large portfolio now of different products sitting within the OTT suite.
I myself caught the short bug this week for the first time. My drama. I saw it on social, sort of aggressively promoted. It's just a series of, it's, I don't want to say soft porn because nothing was shown or anything, but it's flirting with the line. I would have my laptop checked out by any IT department. I have nothing to hide, but I got to say, I kind of fell into the rabbit hole and watched about an hour of it. I can see what
Well,
that's
we
a
can
bit.
see, right? All the metrics are showing people are spending a ton of time watching short form content on social platforms. The ad market for short form content on YouTube and otherwise has exploded and now almost exceeds the value of streaming. We are seeing that there's just an incredible amount of investment going into short form content right now, whether that's original micro dramas or otherwise. But it's very funny, David, that you mentioned with the story you were just talking about. Sorry, Daniel, is we actually had a client that did come to us that had a large catalog, but they specifically, let's say, did romance movies. And he's like, well, I'd really like to move this into short form. And I was like, well, I think this will take off, but I don't think we're going to be your vendor to do so because we don't work in that category.
That's the only.
And
There's romance, and then there's romance. Is I think what
there's
you're trying to
romance and then there's
suggest in the most
romance.
delicate way possible while you blush, which I find very amusing
Exactly.
to see in a man of a certain age on camera. That being said, it is interesting more generally. I guess you were sounding the call for shorts ascendancy 12 to 18 months ago. And now we have thrown in the whole microdrama, the verticals component too, which is only added to it thanks to the crazy markets for these things in China that have now come here and other markets around the world. We see Disney has vertical markets. We see Netflix now has vertical, though it's mostly kind of clips from some of their shows. But I think they're all going to get serious. Cineverse, who's been a beloved sponsor, whose chairman is my former boss at MGM, Chris McGurk, has dived into that too, and they're creating stuff. I mean, Hollywood's like, oh, this is a thing we can do. It doesn't cost very much, and people are nuts about it.
Well,
So
this was
let's.
They're nuts
they were
about
on
it.
this months before I saw investor analysts and everyone talking about Netflix doing it. What were you guys seeing, Paul, and what caused you to do that?
Yeah. So what we saw, generally, right, we could see the big macro trends. Like I come from research, right, and strategy, and you could see obviously the market was very rapidly developing, and both the ad market, the time spent on YouTube and others, right, were growing substantially. And so you say, okay, everybody's focused on the competition that's in front of them, but they're not thinking about the competition that's developing alongside of them, right? And that's now that what we call the creator economy.
It's
So
kind of
that was
like underneath them almost. It's not even alongside them, but it's like because they don't see it because it's like it's not on the devices they use. It's not the links that they use. It's not in the there's not a journalism component. There's not an awards component. There's not any of that sort of infrastructure that's built up over the last 100 years for film or 70 years for TV to say, hey, you guys might find this interesting. Maybe
That's
it might
right.
be a
But we're
business.
seeing talent being developed out of it, right? I was listening today as the Grammys are on while we're recording here, right? And they were talking about the rise of Bad Bunny. And it was really through him working on YouTube and SoundCloud and other places that he essentially developed his own brand, his music, and then it became discovered by the labels, right? And then he becomes into the mass, the big ecosystem. And I actually think as we're going to see the development of microdramas across we're seeing it across many of our clients in many different regions. I think you're going to see specific investment by the big studios this year. And it can be a great ground for IP development, right? If you look back at like the Alloy models of like 2000, 2010, that was a studio based out of Warner Brothers,
Right.
right? And what it is
But
they would
but weren't
generate.
they were kind of a crossover between Alloy, the fashion style thing, and then film, but short stuff that could get on the web because it was short, right? Wasn't
That's
that
right.
the vision?
Part of it was they also would go out, essentially they would work with a number of creators, put a bunch of ideas together, and then pay an author $20,000 to go write a book, and they would see if the book worked just for $20,000, and then go and take a show like Pretty Little Liars and then sell it to ABC Family, right? And then you develop this franchise. I think we're going to see the same thing coming out of micro dramas this year, as people are going to be looking, how do I begin to seed talent and seed ideas that could have more extensions into other places, right? But because right now it's still relatively hard to monetize it at the value you're investing on these micro dramas. But over time, you're going to be looking at the business model being something different. It's not just about the micro drama itself.
Didn't Tubi, they had a hit on The Quarterback and Me, I forget what it's called, it was a youth romantic drama that produced in fall of 2024 a huge audience for them. And they've since spawned a sequel, and I think they have a third movie coming out. And
I think they're doing one called The Wide Receiver and Me. No, the strong safety
but,
and boy, you got a lot of opportunity there to spread out
but
the
it,
brand.
it was gestated as a series of shorts. That's how it
Yeah,
started.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
speaking of shorts, I mentioned in passing, Kaby Lame, who's the biggest superstar on TikTok with 160 million followers, just did a deal with a company which is on NASDAQ for almost $1 billion for 3 years of rights to all his stuff. And they'll make money off of all those things that Alloy was talking about back in the day, right?
that's right.
And also an AI copy equivalent to do more interacting because there's only so much Kaby Lame you can do, it turns out.
That's right.
Well, it's
Well,
what's
let
interesting to
me talk a
me.
little bit for a second about some of the technology we do, and then how we're seeing also now studios apply some of the use cases of short form. So what we are able to do, right? We have a long form piece of content. We can take it and essentially put a ton of metadata against it, literally second by second or minute by minute or scene by scene, just depending on how much you want to spend on compute. But then we have a real understanding of that piece of content. And we can then identify high impact emotional moments, right? Big comedic moments, big drama moments, and automatically identify for you, hey, there's some big moments that you could use in social media publishing. On top of it, you could natural language query, because you could be like, you know what, I'm looking for somebody in an orange suit today because there's whatever's trending and I want to see that. And we've
It's
also
Orange
now,
Day. Yeah,
it's Orange
right.
Day. We have an orange screen here, but also on top of it, we actually will be releasing at the end of Q1 social signals. So we'll begin understanding what's happening in the conversations of YouTube and Reddit boards and otherwise, and say, hey, let's begin to query your database of that metadata that we talked about and understand whether or not you have something that could be of value in that conversation. We then automatically then identify the clip. We have editorial tools to let you concatenate with other clips or to add GIFs or, replace the audio or subtitle or dubbing. And then we can smart crop it for you. So we're ready for verticalization and publishing, right? And so we can literally get something that would take a company. I can tell you a great example. Bad Bunny was on Saturday Night Live, right, a number of months ago. He did a skit called El Chavo de Ocho that was referenceable material, right? It's a slapstick humor from Mexico from in the 1990s when he was growing up. or maybe 2000s. I guess he was growing up later.
Right.
A little bit later, yeah.
It took them 10 hours to find that client to find the referenceable content, and that took them a day to publish. We're talking about how can we be relevant in the conversation at the moment and get them that clip within a minute, right? Identified, ready for publishing in vertical format, ready to
Even
go
though in this case in Spanish as opposed to
in
English.
Spanish. That's
It
right. We
seems
can
to
do
me
that
that
as well.
you have to have clients that are sort of set up for that, and maybe you have to help them get there. What's that like? I mean, sure, it exists
Sure.
somewhere, but is it accessible, I guess, is the question.
Yes. So, I mean, we have for our clients that are our end-to-end transformation pieces, it's, we basically just append some of the existing technology, but we have built to the technology so that it can plug into their ecosystem with an understanding. I mean, we understand end-to-end, we understood what they had, right? So now it's more a matter, the first thing they need to do is essentially do a pass of their content for this metadata, because that everything starts with the metadata. But the great thing is once you have all that metadata, and if we'll get to the use cases in a second, but if you also have a first party experience, you can now leverage all that data to help improve cold starts on your experience, to start improving your discovery on your experience, to drive engagement because you know what to recommend. It just becomes so much more powerful. I think, Daniel, when we were doing a little bit of our prep, I was talking about the fact that, like, you may know, and if somebody likes horror, right, as a movie or a genre, but you don't know they really like gruesome horror. And once you understand they like gruesome horror, there's many more things you can recommend that may not even sit in that same genre. So something like Triangles of Sadness that has this really gory second act is a perfect thing to recommend to that person and potentially get more engagement out of them and more monetization out of them. So those are the types of that's the power of the tools that we have. But I think that use cases that we see across the industry right now, number one driver is marketing, because they want to be relevant. They
Yep.
want to, and then number two is they're thinking about first party experiences and how to actually showcase their content to get greater engagement out of their library, which is so often not seen in a traditional rail format.
Well, let's talk a little bit, if we could, Super Bowl Olympics. The Olympics start, I think, on Thursday night, 3 days after this podcast publishes. And the Super Bowl, I've heard somewhere, is going to be on Sunday. That ad fest and concert that also apparently, I didn't know this either, has a football game involved, is also really big with brands. What are the trends that you're seeing as you skate across all this stuff with what Quickplay does and the contents that you guys see? What are the trends? What are the things that are happening this year going into this bomb cyclone of branding?
I really like that.
Certainly.
Sure.
I think that the thing that we see the most of, right, is just trying to be relevant more than anything else.
Desperately
How
trying
can
to be
you
relevant, right?
desperately
Yeah.
trying to be relevant? And I think that's really important. So it's both one, let's talk about the fact that these big sporting events, but not everybody watches the same way. We know younger audiences, for example, watch more highlights than they watch full form content. So how are you getting and meeting in the moment, right? If you are NBC with your Olympic rights, or you're, I don't know how it's the Super Bowl this year. Is it Fox? I think it's Fox.
NBC.
No, it's also NBC. That's the thing that's crazy. They're both on NBC and Peacock.
Both on NBC. Wow.
Yeah.
They have a big month.
It's going to do
Wouldn't
okay
it
on
be
the
great
ads,
if you had some cable channels
ads this week.
Exactly.
Actually,
But
I
you have
wanna
you have to
point
make
out,
sure you're publishing it fast.
Yeah, but Paul, I want to point out, not only is NBC having a big month, but in Europe, and these are going to be gigantic in Europe, Discovery had a little channel with Olympic rights for most of Europe, right? That's now part of Warner Brothers Discovery for the moment. So they'll have it big over there with, it used to be
They will.
Eurosport. I think they changed the name to
Eurosport.
like Bleacher Report Sports or something, or BR Sports. But they've got the Olympic rights in Europe, most of Europe. So it's going to be
I
interesting.
want to ask about Peacock, though, because Comcast reported earnings last week, and they grew a little bit after a period of stagnant subscriber growth. They finally perked up to 44 million subscribers, and they're losing gobs of money. The NBA accounting hit their books, and losses shot up to about, what was it, David?
66 million or something like that?
Right. Yeah, it was higher than this time last year.
Yeah, no one's losing money except Peacock, it feels like these days. Well, maybe Apple, but
Is
that
it a
doesn't
function
count.
of these giantly expensive rights deals? Are these rights
Yes.
deals what they need to do?
Yeah, part of that was the NBA deals. 27 billion over 10 years. That adds up, but But that's also, it's hard to figure out how that gets accounted for, because part of it goes to Peacock, part of it goes to NBC, and it is amortized out over 10 years and blah, 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 blah. And the halo effect and the tune in value and all those things. I would love to have seen, I would have loved to have seen the spreadsheets that justify all of that by
Oh my
saying,
gosh.
we'll have something to watch on Monday nights on Peacock, which otherwise we won't have.
Yeah. But it's interesting though, right? So to your point there, they're losing money still. So there's something about the price elasticity they don't feel they can push at this moment to be able
Right.
to recover that full value. Now, maybe it's about the short-term investment and long-term gain on this, and they're just looking at year one as a place to make some losses. But it is kind of amazing that somebody's got to have done the analysis and say, can we charge another $1? Can we charge another $2? Now that we have these rights, they must not feel that they can at this moment.
Well, there's this big discussion about Paramount and how they need scale. They have nearly 80 million subscribers worldwide, and that's nearly twice as big as Peacock. It seems like Comcast and Brian Roberts should be panicked right now. I mean, they're tiny, relatively.
Well, their
relative-
streaming service is tiny, but they still have Zumo doing whatever that is. And they do make money, I've heard, off of other things, turns out.
Even
It's almost-
broadband, even though it's declining in users, it's spinning off more.
Margins are good, though, and it's built, so you're not having the same crazy CapEx you had 5 years ago. So there's that. But, no one's worried about Brian Roberts' next meal. Let me just clarify.
But it's interesting, Daniel, because
Particularly this month.
I don't know. I can't recall, to be honest. I don't think Peacock has an international presence. And that was, I was one of the, original.
As a partnership, they do.
A partnership they do. I was one of the original team members of at Disney when we invested in Hulu and worked on that project for many years. And one of the biggest challenges we faced at different moments was that we didn't have the international scale to compete on buying content, or you had to overpay to get certain rights for just domestic rights only. And that also can eat at the economics of a streaming service, because you're not getting that kind of global scale on some of the rights buys that you're doing otherwise. So
It's almost like a complicated business.
it's a complicated business.
We did talk briefly about horror shows and things like that, and there were two actually that apparently hit the theaters this week. Actually, technically 3. One was sort of fairly conventional, Send Help, but from the great Sam Raimi as director, and that did just fine. But then there was another one from a little-known Slovenian Sphinx and a disgraced former director, for which Amazon spent an eye-popping $75 million to both acquire and then put into 27 countries, I think. It looked like it was going to be a disaster. And then a bunch of, this is too crazy not to be real, a bunch of little old ladies conservative women in Boulder, an older audience in the South and Southeast, turned up in theaters that otherwise in other parts of the country were empty, literally empty in some cases, to make it probably the best documentary debut forever. And they puffed up the viewers' Rotten Tomato scores.
It was 6,
while
it's now
the critics
10%, went up to 10%.
While the critics think, it's impossible to really know what the critics think, because it's impossible to do an actual creative assessment.
Well, let's make a creative assessment of Maureen Dowd, who never lets me down. Her headline was Slovenian
She was brilliant in her takedown of that.
Slovenian
right,
Sphinx,
and it's entertaining.
A play on the old Variety headline, Hicks
picks, Hicks Nicks something picks. Hicks. Yeah, it did not work. The films didn't work in the Hicks in Iowa. Didn't play in Keokuk, as they like to say.
And there was William Babini of Bibiani, I'm sorry.
Bibiani.
Of the Rap, talking about Ratner. He couldn't find the humanity in a funeral, he said. I thought that was really clever. Anyway,
he could find the dead humanity. That being said,
I didn't see the film, so I shouldn't take it down.
At Trump's request, he's directing a 4th Rush Hour. So it's going to end up about $9 million probably at the end of this week, which is a fantastic return for any documentary, except for the fact that they paid $75 million or spent $75 million, and it won't come close to making that. They'll ship it over to Amazon Prime, and they'll get some more legs out of it from all the folks that did not go to theaters, and they'll have a little conservative counterweight to some of the other stuff they've got, and it actually will fit in pretty well with the Jack Reacher and Jack Ryan, or the Reacher and Jack Ryan and other action things.
I'm gonna tell you how this is gonna play. Dan Feldman, the distribution guy at Warner Brothers, used to tell me when I'd write box office, we beat tracking, write that. He would tell me, and they beat tracking. They nearly 2x'd it. I mean, it was 5 million was the tracking, and they did 9 million. So,
yeah.
I think
it's a kind of film though, but it's a kind of film that would be impossible for NRG or these other guys to be able to track, because who's going to be, what are they tracking? They're tracking the kinds of things that Paul tracks, like what's the noise being made on social media, who are the folks posting on Reddit, all these kind of signals ahead of time of interest. And these are not that crowd. They're not necessarily regular moviegoers even, but they're Melania goers. So her horror show, as called by some, is going to do fine. The one I thought was more interesting was Markiplier, another creator, this one on YouTube, who does great. He's got 38 million YouTube subs. Iron Lung, his adaptation with the creator of
that's just the
an
thing
indie
where
video, and it's possibly going to win the weekend. And he doesn't even care because he makes so much money from YouTube. This is like, hey, let's put on a show. Let's make a movie. Let's self-distribute the movie. Let's self-finance the movie. Holy crap, all my fans showed up. He had 7 million in pre-sales.
I want to ask one more question from guys who know the movie business better than I do. What happens to Melania now? It seems like everybody who wanted to see it saw it.
Possibly. But again, it's going to go to Amazon in 2 weeks. Who cares?
Even if my politics may not align, I'm kind of curious to see it just because I'm I love documentaries and I want to kind of understand how she may be represented. So I think there's probably plenty of people like myself that'll spend at least 20 minutes watching the first few minutes to see if it's interesting enough to
Sure. But it'll be over there within weeks. I guarantee you that.
I love fragrance ads, and I can just watch a 2-hour fragrance ad all day long.
What does that fragrance smell like? Does it have pine notes? Does it have like a sandalwood? What kind of musky? Is it Elon Musky instead of just regular musk?
You remember the Saturday Night Live fake commercial for Complicit?
No, I didn't.
Daughter that they were ripping on her.
Anyway,
what else we got?
Well, let's see. Speaking of movies, I started my part of the column this week, not start, but well into it. I said I was so excited that Amazon was spending $75 million to buy 15 movies at Sundance, each for about $5 million, including marketing and distribution. And they were going to give these films a theatrical release with some marketing support. It was going to be a huge boost to up and coming talent. And then some bastard, probably named Dan Frankel, said, that didn't really happen. They spent that $75 million on a useless movie about the first lady so they could suck up to Don Trump. I was like, okay, I'm no longer excited. So a heartbreaker, but it could have been. Josephine won they give out a bunch of grand jury prizes for different categories. It won the one, it's sort of the big one in the U.S. dramatic competition. It is a tough film by all accounts about a little kid seeing a crime in Golden Gate Park and the child's difficult reactions, not unlike, I might add, some of the people who were victims in the Epstein files, who get to see Brett Ratner and Melania and Don Trump, all of whom were in this week's drop of the Epstein files. So let's just bring that one back.
My goodness.
Right to where we started.
That's crazy.
Anyway, but this is the last run for Sundance in Park City. They are decamping east to Boulder, Colorado, 20 miles from my beloved father who lives in Golden or thereabouts. And when I told him that they were moving there, he said, your bed's already made, so I know where I'll be next year.
And now Park City? Why are they doing that?
That's a pretty nice, convenient place to stay if you're 20 minutes away from Boulder. That's awesome.
It is a very convenient place to stay. The other thing is Park City is a delightful town. 7,400 feet or something like that. It is not made for the onslaught of brand activations that take over Main Street and every other available space that's not being used to show a movie. It's normally, I think, about a town of 9,000 people. And so you throw in temperatures around 12, you throw in 3 to 4 feet of snow, and nowhere to park if you happen to have a car, a public transit system that tries the best it can to move everybody around but faces all those challenges.
Sure.
It is not a convenient place anymore. It was 40 years ago when Redford brought it there. and renamed it from whatever they were calling it back then to Sundance. And it is a terrific experience. If you can get a chance to go, I strongly recommend it. I think it will explode in Boulder, to be frank. So I look forward to seeing what happens. Boulder's a town of about 300,000 on the edge of 25 miles northwest of Denver. College town, lots of university spaces and college kids there to volunteer and help out.
It was the alcohol OD capital of America not too long ago.
Really?
Well, you know.
University of Colorado students.
There you go.
I
But I was
might add-
surprised they didn't move it to Salt Lake City just to keep the association with Utah. I thought that it's been such a big economic.
No, Utah, because I wasn't surprised because the three options were stay in Utah, more in Salt Lake City than they've done, less in Park City. Two was Cincinnati, noted
Yes.
censorship capital for America, going back to Robert Mapplethorpe and Larry Flint and a few others, and Boulder, which is actually big enough and actually can give you a decent pour of whiskey should you
Oh,
be
that's
the
very
person
true.
who likes to do that while
Home of
giving you
Morky Mindy.
easy access to skiing and other things.
I don't know if you remember
Plus-
that. That was the home base of Mork and Mindy. That's where they lived. Robin
Right.
Williams
Really?
and Dauber.
There you
Right.
go.
And Pam Dauber at that point was absolutely very intoxicating. I totally agree.
Good tie-in.
It's a very brilliant tie-in. I like that.
I'm just wrapping things up. This is my job.
I like it. I think that was quite impressive.
I do think that Sundance will get bigger than ever. It'll be more accessible and more able to accommodate all those bastard branding and marketing people that Paul hangs out with, doing all kinds of interesting stuff because they'll be in a major metropolitan area that actually does drink, for instance.
That's right.
So it'll be really interesting to see how that transforms next year. Eugene Hernandez, who I knew a tiny bit a long time ago when he ran the LA Film Festival, and then he went off to run the Lincoln Center Film Society and program stuff there, is now running this post Robert Redford, and I think he's going to be great. It's going to be great. So
Speaking of legacy businesses, pay TV has been saved. I don't know if you heard that.
well, let's just say at least temporarily, shall
Charter
we?
grew subscribers. First time. I mean, they did it in this sort
I
of
did see that.
quirky period during the pandemic where people were looking for anything to
Desperate.
watch. But they actually added 44,000 pay TV subs. The strategy of giving away SVODs or incorporating it in the bundle works. It's going to happen for Cox Communications, which is going to be taken over by Charter later this year.
Well, Charter will be renamed Cox, too. That's the other wacky thing.
Other
gonna
people
rename
will mimic it, and a resurgent amount of people will get their programming through a bundle provided by their telecom operator.
I'll be
I mean, I thought that
interested
was
to see
brilliant
what that
when-
is. Right?
what is
Was
it?
I mean that was
Think about
basically what Disney did, right? Disney, well, they were the first ones to do the deal. I think it was with Charter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Where they essentially said, we'll basically authenticate or Disney Plus on the ad side. And I think everybody else has now gone down that path and realized there's a wonderful thing to the stickiness of a pay TV bundle. And so everybody's on that train now. And I think they're now finding value behind it. The challenge I find, I don't know about you guys, but like it is still unbelievably difficult to navigate where you want to watch something. I watched the Australian Open this last 2 weeks, trying to figure out where are those games and which service I have to have in order to be able to watch all the games is like it's
Right.
landscape.
It felt like
yes.
it was changing, Paul, like on every serve.
Right. No,
I mean,
for sure. Every game.
double link the serve.
It was definitely on a different.
You got to cut to the
Yeah,
tennis
it was a
channel.
different
Oops, no,
channel.
you gotta cut
And you
the-
miss the pay TV days where you just turn the TV on and there it is, right? So, I mean, I have to say there's something that's convenient about it. Even tonight with the Grammys, making sure I have my my Paramount Plus, knowing that for your example, Peacock, I'll have to have for the next month to be able to watch the Olympics and to watch the Super Bowl. See how I can tie it all back together too, David. But like it's kind of amazing the number of things you have to put together as a consumer now in order to be able to make sure you have the television experience you're looking for.
Yeah, I had to do a little quick emergency spousal support management process earlier this evening when my spouse forgot where to find the Grammys, and
You
she'd
ought to be
gotten on to
You got to
Paramount
be careful,
Plus.
sir. Is she here?
She is not there. She's watching the Grammys as we speak, but she'd kind of forgotten. Well, she forgot about this whole like CBS. Like, who thinks about that if you're not watching Tracker with Dan? You know,
Hey,
she. Hey.
drives a great truck. Every episode is cleaned up. I don't have to worry about it. Everybody's safe. You know, making
That's all good to know, Dan. They bring it home every week. It's amazing how fast he finds these people. But that being said, she doesn't watch CBS very much, and she's kind of forgotten about it. And I think that's not crazy. I mean, I think people are
Sure.
kind of forgetting about that broadcast component. So yes, Dan, pay TV has been saved. It is going to be the ascendant thing. David
I
Ellis
need
is
it to be for
onto
my
something
headline.
here.
Okay,
It's going to be huge.
my
Going to
headline
be.
doesn't work without it. So anyway,
I would say that, by the way, I just moved into a new place, and so I have some new TVs, and I was like, oh, I should go out and go get an HD antenna and stick it on the back of the television, and then I could watch
Right.
this stuff for free.
so let me ask you.
Kind of amazing, right?
Looking at your background, you've been kind of all over coast to coast. University of Virginia, West Coast, the big studios.
Your
Now you're in
cavalier
Miami.
approach has not paid off, has it?
What brings you to Miami?
What brings me out of Miami? One is, it's actually very interesting because we asked this question this week, right? Because NAPTI's here this week, and then Content Americas was just there 2 weeks ago. At the very end of the day, I moved to Miami. What's amazing is when you can feel a boomtown. And I will say I was in San Francisco right there in the .com days, and you could feel the energy that sat around it. I think LA had the energy behind it up until about the moment of COVID, with the heavy investment in content that was going in, the technology companies also coming in. You could feel like all the models were working. Everybody was making, there was money to be made. There was excitement around the industry. And I look at Miami right now, I feel it has that energy, sitting there with the intersection of tech, really seeing some new investment coming off of COVID and people being able to be more remote and work from different places. And it's a really wonderful community. I will say, I always have 3 observations about, LA versus Miami. The first is that LA is a town that's known for beautiful people and showy wealth, but that's child's play relative to Miami.
In a much smaller place. I just want to.
Much smaller place.
Much
It's crazy.
smaller. Yeah. But the distillation of beautiful, rich people is along Miami Beach a little nuts, right?
It's
Didn't we
nuts.
just
Well, you see
surpass-
Bezos and
they
everybody
just
else was
surpassed New
moving here,
York?
right?
Well,
Yep.
they're just trying to, get out of.
Everybody
state
pay taxes.
income.
Yeah, exactly. And number
It's
2, though,
some
is they're
key
both
real estate
Latino
value
majority
that-
cities. Sorry,
What, Dan?
And Miami just surpassed New York City in key real estate value metrics. I think one was average listing price for estates of a certain size. So I
Well,
had
we'll
no
see
idea.
how many of those stay above water in the next 20 years. But sure, it should work out great. So no
Paul will
problem.
be
You were
on to
gonna
his
say
next
That's
growth
very
interview.
true. That's very true, David. I've made sure I bought a place above the first floor.
above the first glacier melt, right? I mean, you're above
Exactly.
that
Speaking
high
of
top.
glaciers, did you read my lead story today in our issue? ICE is sending out a request for information,
Right.
RPIs as they're called, RFIs, to ad
RFIs.
tech companies to help them with investigations. They want tracking data and location data. And that's like,
They're probably going to need more than an RFI to get that data. I mean, if you're an ad tech company, you've already got a bad reputation and you're going to start cooperating with law enforcement to just spill over data that's supposed to be fairly private, quote unquote, and you're just giving it without a warrant for.
that seems like bad PR.
That seems like bad PR for your company. And
Yeah.
probably there's going to be some blowback within the industry. I don't know, though. We have somebody from the branding and marketing universe who might have some ideas about this. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I generally would agree. I think that there would be a tremendous amount of blowback in terms of serving people's data to a government agency
Without
But
a
I-
warrant.
without a warrant. But we have seen many tech companies recently find ways to be close to the administration and to look in other directions at their policies in order to befriend the government. So you never know these days.
Right. Anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
Maybe less possible in a year. We'll see how this plays out. I think it'll be really interesting to see, because this is not a right or left issue. This is stuff that's not going to play well with people on both sides of the political spectrum who are suspicious of government overreach of many kinds. And I think that'll be fascinating to watch. I look forward to that. I do want to say, though, you're right about Miami, and Vegas has some of that same buzz too, right? And it's nearly as hot as Miami in the summertime, but it's a dry heat. But this week I'm a co-host of a long-running gathering called Westside Digital Mix, which brings together tech and media people. I can tell you, even here, you were right about the pandemic kind of being a useful marker for, oh, shit changed, to use the technical term. But the attitudes of the people I was talking with were markedly different from even like last summer. I used the term trepidatious optimism. And I think that that's because they're still like, okay, we're waiting for that other shoe to drop or those other 3 shoes to drop. But people are doing stuff. There's a lot of interesting things going on. I went to the Producers Guild's showcase of its Innovation Award finalists, and there was some really cool stuff. You know, the Wizard of Oz thing at the Sphere in Vegas.
So cool.
Cosm, which has got a spot here in LA and over in Dallas, and Building 3 More has a cool experience with big surf waves, you know, that's sort of overwhelming when you're seeing it, you know, wrapping around you 100 feet over your head. You get an idea of the scale of those things. 3 different headsets, Apple Vision Pro, the Samsung,
Is
and
Cosm doing
the
the Super Bowl?
MetaQuest. What?
Is Cosm hosting the Super Bowl this year?
I'm sure there is no way they would not. I can't imagine they would not.
Yeah, every time I try to book them, they are sold out.
That suggests that they may also, it's possible, that they would also carry the Super Bowl, which may have some interest despite this Olympic thing. I suspect those have been booked and sold out for a while because it's a cool experience. I'll say it's a cool experience. But my bigger point was that these new kinds of tools that the Producers Guild is spotlighting are some of the future. You are talking about shorts and short films and short creators and all that, Paul, and that is absolutely a business that is blowing up. But at some point, this immersive stuff, longer form stuff that's meaningful and connects to people beyond the stuff that's getting generated by the gazillions by AI will provide some sort of alternative experience. And I think that will matter more a few years down the road when we are snowed under. Just like
I agree. It's interesting. I was sitting on a panel at Content Americas just last week or 2 weeks ago. And one of the panelists that I was with was talking about the application of AI and what's that's doing to production. One is like, you know, they will shoot a scene. They'll actually be able to now say, shoot a scene. And basically, instead of taking 20 takes, they can say, hey, we've already basically mapped out the entire angle, the lighting, everything else before we shoot. So we only need to get it twice. So it's a more efficient use of the actor's time. There's ways to basically now target the ad that you and I get, David versus Daniel, right? In terms of changing the background and the spokesperson in that environment for an ad for marketing purposes to make it more relevant and make it and drive more interest and engagement. There's a number of tools especially in the backgrounds of these micro dramas where they're creating the scene, much like you have your San Marcos Square. But making it live and making it actionable that is kind of, you know, helping tell and democratize some of the ability for storytellers. So there's some really interesting things on the forefront. I'm still obviously very connected to the Los Angeles community and the creator community there. I am very hopeful that production comes back into the state of California in many respects and back into the Los Angeles, and that they also embrace the tools and are seen as the innovators of those tools to help, you know, drive, you know, to your point, you know, a new, interesting way to engage in content driven by technology and creative.
Absolutely. One of the guys I talked with at the Westside Digital Mix, guy I've known a long time, I won't spill any beans on him, but he's talking about work that he's doing in a city very close to LA, but not LA, to try to imagine what a globally dispersed, non-decentralized, postmodern media company would look like, how you create that, what parts you need to have to still remain physically a place to shoot things, but with the AI tools, virtual productions, all the kinds of stuff that we now can do, the AI assisted hybrid workflows. And that is a really interesting set of work that really, I suspect, needs people like some of the folks that are trying to figure out what they're going to do next, because they know how to make superb stuff like Tracker, Dan's show.
Exactly.
But how can they make it more efficiently?
And I don't know if you know this, Dave, but we do know this. Also on the East Coast, you know, I promised I'd get him out by the witching hour, 10 p.m.
All good. All good.
No, he lives in Miami. This is technically when people start going out to get something to eat.
True. That's a very good observation. It's very true.
When they talk about a medianoche sandwich, A midnight sandwich? Because that's the thing they get to start the night at midnight.
It
Let's
is.
just be clear.
It's funny that you'll appreciate this though, because I'm a man of a certain age, and so I think that I have all these friends that come to Miami, they always want to go out because they're like, "It's Miami, we can't wait to go out in Miami," and I'm like, "That's great," but I'm usually in bed by 10. So
Right. Right.
here's a key: have fun.
Well, the other thing you should do is just say, and here's the Marcelo Hernandez a special, the guy from Saturday Night Live who's breaking out. And he talks about
Yes,
being raised as a Cuban kid in Miami, being told at 6, you got to dance all the time, and he's very funny about that Miami upbringing and all it's
and
engaged.
speaking of other Miami connections, right? The other college football game, the quarterback was from Miami,
All right, Fernando
from
Mendoza.
Indiana
Yeah,
University.
exactly. He and his
And I
younger
think
brother
both
both.
coaches played it in Miami, so it was a huge Miami connection, and the game was
Absolutely.
here. Kind
I
of
didn't know
interesting
that.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So here's the problem. Miami's not going to matter in 5 years. It's fine. It's going to be underwater. It's going to be Okeechobee. And then they'll move somewhere else. I don't know, maybe Cortina, because it'll be high enough in the Alps that they don't have to worry about it. They won't have any
well,
snow. It won't be cold. So it'll work out great. Could be
it is
fun.
beautiful there. But you saw also the article around. I think it was the New York Times or Wall Street Journal saying this is like one that Milan and Cortina have become the land of for the super elite and rich, right? Largely driven by the fact that they've had a special tax scheme put in place in Italy where you only pay $100,000 or $200,000 a year, and you can essentially claim residency. But they said that it's basically shooting up the prices of real estate in Cortina like you can't believe.
Oh, I bet. And I got to say, as somebody who's been in Milano, and over to Como, which is like 40 miles away, 40 minutes away, they didn't need any help with
Here we go.
higher property
No, they
value.
did not.
No assistance needed on that one. It's been overpriced since the 1500s. So there
All
you
right,
go.
my
Anyway,
Europhile buddy.
we'll wrap this puppy up. But Paul, fantastic having you. Thanks so much. I hope you make it through the Super Bowl Olympics
Right?
down there in sunny Miami. We are dealing with it here in sunny Los Angeles, and everybody in between, stay warm. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think. You can get our weekly newsletter, Next TMT, delivered to your very mailbox free every week by going to nexttm, as in media, t.com, and signing up. And you can get this links to this here podcast, Next TMT Talks. We are so happy to have you with us on this ride. Thank you again, Paul Pastor of Quickplay. This is David Bloom and Daniel Frankel, over and out.